Welcome to another lap with MB2 Underground, where we don't just talk shop, we pit stop. Get ready for all the twists and turns of the dental world. I am Skeefer, and this is Jafox.
Wow.
How was that for a riddle?
Is that like an inspiration in the shower this morning, or where'd you come up with that one? The intro, that was pretty cool.
It's always based on the interests of our guest. So this guest has an interest in F1, and since I was a spectator at the Dutch Grand Prix, I thought that would be the one to kick us off with.
We're going to have to start talking about that. That's fascinating.
I think so.
This is going to be another great episode. Very interesting, unique individual.
If you thought it was going to be a bad episode, would you say that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or is this your manifesting?
I don't know. I don't know if we've had any that I thought would be bad.
Okay.
Pretty optimistic person.
Yeah, it's annoying.
But so look, this guy's a serial entrepreneur. Those individuals, just by definition, they're very unique. But they literally they're really special, and it's fascinating to learn about them, from them.
What quantifies serial?
Multiple, more than one.
So if it was two.
Yeah, or in this case, more than two.
Okay,
right?
I just wanted to make sure I understood the definition.
Yeah. Well, I mean, starting a business is pretty special, especially when it's a unique business. But starting more than one is kind of even specialer, right? Anyways, this is gonna be a fun one. So I'm very, very excited.
Dope. Same.
Okay, great to see you this morning.
Me too.
All right, so with again, without further ado, I would like to introduce the co-founder and CEO of Pulse Equity, Mr. Nicholas Mahalec.
Hey, good to see you both this morning.
And I pronounced that okay?
Yep, perfect.
Awesome, man. Hey, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for having me. This
is
is
it
great.
Nick or Nicholas?
Nick's perfect.
Okay, perfect. Nick's perfect.
Yeah, it's easier. Awesome, man. So listen, like you've done some really cool, special things. Can't wait to talk more about Pulse and understand it's a very unique business model, and I think it will absolutely resonate with the majority of our listeners. But I think before we get into the really cool, serious stuff, the producers, producer Brittany, producer Aster, and Miss Kiefer, are very excited to learn more about your reality TV fetish.
Let's not call it a fetish, but yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
What's wrong with fetish? Okay, but yeah, go.
My
Sorry.
wife and I watch far too much Bravo. Let's put it that way.
Okay, because it said the trashier the better, and I was trying to guess how trashy it gets.
Like, yeah, give us some examples. Here.
I'm kind of the one that sets limits with my wife in terms of she will go down deep, dark rabbit holes, and I kind of like leave it at the Bravo level.
Okay.
Real Housewives, Below Deck, that sort of thing. She will go towards Too Hot to Handle and all that, and I'm just like,
That's what I was wondering about. Too Hot to Handle, F-Boy Island. Like, it gets real trashy.
No, yeah. So like sometimes I get sucked into it. And
Yeah,
it's,
because
it's great, but I try not to because
it'll hook you and it'll melt your brain.
it's terrible because I have a neighbor who, I was telling Aster this earlier, I have a neighbor who is, I guess, a somewhat famous actress, and I've not seen a single thing she's in. And so she's like naming all these shows. I'm like, I'm sorry if you're not on, if you don't know Andy Cohen and you're not on Bravo, I just don't know who you are.
But at what point did you get kicked off of F-Boy Island? Then I'll
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. That's hilarious.
That's where it goes.
So which one's your favorite?
I love Below Deck.
I don't actually know what that is.
It's the one where it started out in like motor yachts. They're following the crew around, and then it switches sailing, and it started in I think the Caribbean. Then they had a European version, and then a Scandinavian version of it.
And it's about boats?
Basically, just like the yacht cruise.
Yeah, the competitive
super yachts.
sailing, like the
No. On
It's reality
like super
TV.
yachts.
Oh wow, like
Competitive
Royal
sailing.
Caribbean.
No, not even. It's like, hey, you got a 200-foot yacht, you got a crew on it, and they just follow the crew like for the charter guests to come aboard.
Gotcha.
And all this shit. I mean, it's very scripted in some ways, but hey, dude, for winding down at the end of the night.
That's what you need. You need to turn it off.
Yep. Like after putting the gauntlet of putting my boys to bed.
Yeah, you're right.
I just do not want to think.
Yeah.
Between whatever happened during the workday and then, stuff with family, like my wife and I can just turn that on and fall asleep to absolute trash.
Love it.
So it's great.
Wow.
My hero.
So you're a serial entrepreneur, but where were you at on the Reality Steve business model? That guy's crushing it, man.
Oh, who's that?
Oh, you don't know Reality Steve? Okay, he's the
I don't
guy who
either.
he always blows the cover of The Bachelor.
Oh,
like who's winning and all that stuff.
okay.
No. Anyway,
So
Funny.
yeah, he's got a pretty big following.
that's rude. So he just like spoiler alert?
Yeah, he spoiler alerts.
Oh, funny.
What
My,
an
my wife's
asshole.
well into The Bachelor. So.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Golden Bachelor? Do you have any perspectives on this?
I don't watch it.
You're
so,
not
like,
into. Okay, so that's not.
I'm not
on your
really into
list.
The Bachelor
I
and all
gotcha.
that. But
You're just more into keeping up with the Kardashians.
yeah. One of my buddies was actually he was on The Bachelorette, and essentially it was more scripted than I thought it was. Like you could tell,
totally.
he was like, all right, the producers are casting me as a character, and he like played into that character. But in real life, he's actually not a very different, but like different enough that it's interesting.
There's a show on Netflix that it's not reality TV, but it's based on reality TV, and it's supposed to like show you how scripted it is.
I've seen this.
You know what I'm talking about? Unreal or something?
Yes, yeah, and I saw that, loved it.
Yes, it was so good.
Absolutely unhinged.
Reality TV about reality TV.
Yep.
Non-reality TV about reality TV.
And so
We're in the Matrix.
There's a funny story. One of our friends in LA, he is actually a fairly a successful reality TV producer. Have you seen the show? What's it called? House of Villains?
No, but is it that all the villains from the other reality TV shows?
Yeah. So
Iconic.
he will
That's
literally
ingenious.
text my wife late at night about like, hey, like who do I need to interview to come on the next season? And like she just gave him the download on like,
So your wife is a co-producer.
Basically.
in a weird way, like she didn't know who, I forget what this guy Jax's last name is. He's on Vanderpump Rules, or was at some point. And like the guy had no clue who he was. Like, no, this guy's unhinged. You absolutely need to interview him. And he's been gold for the show.
And that was your wife's credit.
Yeah. So it's pretty funny.
I love
But
it.
yeah.
I love it. Did you do Survivor by any chance? Were you into that?
Did a couple seasons, but not too much.
I feel like you missed the sentence where it said the trashier the better.
that's it. Like
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, okay. So not the old school stuff.
yeah, Survivor is like it's nice, it's touchy feely, like there's a good outcome.
What about Naked and Afraid?
I haven't seen that one
Okay,
yet.
me either.
Yeah.
Well, I saw like half of an episode and they're all actually naked, and I was like, oh, I don't know what I was expecting.
They're naked.
They're naked.
Or naked. Naked. Wow, look at you. That's Garland
funny.
coming out. Yeah, we have a partner that's a survivor. He didn't survive very long, but anyway. So I don't know if you knew him. Yeah.
Fun.
Awesome, man. Well, listen. Thank you for humoring us.
Yeah, of
a
course.
bit.
Yeah.
So you didn't grow up, or you weren't born in the U.S. I'm sorry. Tell us about your journey, like how you made it here. And
Yeah. So my folks were in the oil industry. My old man's from Croatia originally. My mom's from Iran, and they met actually in America, studying in Texas and Houston.
Yeehaw.
And you know,
U of H or Rice or
U of H.
yeah, cool.
Back when the football team was terrible.
Yeah.
Now it's actually much better than it used to be back then.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's where they caught the bug of like, hey, like this is where we need to finally land. And you know, they graduated, weren't able to stay. Eventually made their way into Exxon, moved to Saudi Arabia. And that's where I was born.
Wow.
And then spent a few years there. Have a couple fun, interesting memories from living in the camps there. And then we moved from the desert of Saudi Arabia to the northern reaches of Alberta, Canada.
Wow.
Which was
Culture shock?
a little bit, because you know the Canadian Boy Scouts there, you legitimately had to pay attention, because if it was a whiteout, like you kind of had to figure out how to survive on your own for at least an hour, if like so your parents were finding you. So it was kind of fun. It was interesting. My claim to fame, although it's not really a big one, is I had a little overlap with Gretzky when he was at the Oilers.
Wow.
And so when he went to the Kings, a few years later, we went to America too. And I was like, hey, Dad, like, we can go see Gretzky play. And he's like, no, Nick, you're an idiot. Like, we're going to Boston. He's in LA. These are literally the two furthest NHL teams possible. We are not going to see Gretzky play. Because, like, in Edmonton, the Oilers would go, they may still do this, they would go to a local mall and do practice sessions on the ice. Because the only thing in Edmonton is this giant mall, West Edmonton Mall. And, so that's kind of like the quick and dirty how we got here to America. And it's been awesome, because I think my family and I think epitomized the American dream of coming to America and like getting to the start line, the gun going off, and you go as fast and as far as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wouldn't say it was like a rags to riches story, because by the time we came here, we were like definitely middle class. They worked for an oil company, obviously, but they found an opportunity, they kicked in the door and stepped through it.
Yeah.
And
Maybe
just
like
exploded.
hand towels to riches.
Yeah, maybe. That might be the best way to put it. Like,
think so.
But the story about how my old man ended up in Texas is actually pretty funny. So he was in communist Yugoslavia. You know, didn't understand. he somehow got a scholarship to go to a variety of different schools in the U.S. And there wasn't enough information like what was the right school to choose and why.
Yeah.
All he knew is that they were sending space shuttles into space in Texas. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to University of Houston. And he gets here, he's like, oh, okay. Like now I understand. Like there's all these other places I could have gone.
Wow.
But he had a great experience here. But yeah, it was just kind of funny to talk to the dude and understand why he chose University of Houston, first of all.
Yeah, because you have no context for like where you're landing.
None. And like to give you an idea, like his folks were essentially farmer peasants in the outskirts of Zagreb, Croatia. So
unreal.
You know,
how cool.
Interesting story.
Yeah, and I mean, to ask you kind of a big, large question, but like, just can you maybe speak to kind of with that background, the opportunities that exist, you know, in the United States?
Oh, dude, it's unreal. Like my boys are the first kids born in a Western democracy, and at least on my side of the family, not on my wife's. And to me, that is like a massive golden ticket. And the thing I always say is, and hopefully it doesn't insult, as a former Canadian, hopefully it doesn't insult too many Canadians, but like the thing I noticed in Canada, and even when I go back, I don't know what the saying is, but like, you know, you cut the stalk of wheat that grows too fast, too tall. Yep. So everyone ends up at the same place. Mm-hmm. In the U.S., it's like, doesn't matter. You get to the start line, gun goes off, and you run and sprint as fast as you can. You can take it as far as you can. Yeah. So
that's cool.
It's my biggest challenge is going to be instilling a sense of the values of America, what we bring to the table, into my boys, and so they don't take these things for granted.
The perspective.
Yeah. Nothing's perfect. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, like, I don't care, not talk politics, whether you're left, right, or center, whatever it is, but dude, this is so much better than what else exists in the world, in my opinion, in a lot of ways.
100%. It's a special place, and we take it for granted all the time.
And like, and like, one thing I know, so I sold my last company to a Swedish company, and one thing I didn't fully appreciate until I, had to operate in that new business culture was, maybe this is me being too rosy and optimistic, but I truly believe in American exceptionalism in terms of entrepreneurship, professionalism, and just how fast we move just in our psyche, whether you're an entrepreneur, an employee, or something else. I remember to this day I had an American boss at the mothership in Stockholm, and she sent me a little infographic of like how Americans, Brits, and Swedes made decisions, and like the Americans was like a straight line, the Brits was like kind of a squiggly line, but generally straight, and the Swedes was this like never-ending circle where everyone's got a say in every evolution. Someone drops out until the person that ends up making the decision at the end of the day is the last person standing.
Wow.
And
wearing everybody down.
Yeah, it drove me as an entrepreneur, where I inherently don't work well in rigid systems and processes.
Yes.
Yeah, it drove me crazy. And it didn't help that they were also a bank too. So like there's all sorts of other regulations that come with that. So it was an interesting experience, but it definitely gave me even more perspective and appreciation for just how exceptional we are as a population.
That's a really refreshing perspective post presidential election. I think we all need a little bit of positive perspective.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Did you guys see the Goldman Sachs report that came out that was like, oh, the S&P is only going to go up 2 to 3% per year?
Of course not.
I read this thing and I was like, this is such a load of baloney, because the same thing happened when computers came out, right? Like everyone was worried everyone was going to lose jobs. All that happened was the revenue per employee in the S&P 500 went from like, I'm making up the number, like $300,000 a year to $1 million. Mm-hmm. And I think with AI coming out and everyone freaking out about it, I think all that's going to happen is revenue per employee is going to go from $1 million to 3 or 4, right?
100%.
And I think that's going to turbocharge our growth as a country in the near term. And we're right now being rate limited based on our energy production.
Absolutely.
That's insane.
That's
right?
crazy.
Like when everyone's talking about like growth is going to slow down, like I do not believe it. I think it's a bunch of old school folks sitting in New York City pushing Excel spreadsheets that can't think outside their 4 walls in an office building. So,
absolutely.
But I'm not an expert. This is just me, right? So take it for what it's worth, and this is free advice, so it's worthless.
Well, you're seeing some of these very large tech companies get into the energy business because they see this.
Dude, it's wild.
Isn't it crazy? Like the Googles and Amazons are like, hey, we're going to partner with this nuclear reactor company because we know to fuel all this AI, we need energy.
It's insane. Like, I think I read an article in the New York Times that they're going to turn 3 Mile Island back on just to power data centers.
Wow.
Just for data centers.
And I'm like, that's awesome.
Super
so
awesome.
cool.
That's incredible. So,
100% agree with that, man.
anyways, that's a little bit of a sidebar.
No. So your first business was a solar company.
Yep.
Can you tell us about that? Why'd you get into that?
I look at everything as a math problem, and the math was super interesting.
The math was mathing.
Yeah, basically. And to give you an idea why it was interesting for me, like not to talk too much on numbers, but I was getting 46% unlevered IRRs for my customers.
Wow.
So I know, sorry, but you know, like an APR.
It's like that's so
That's a
much better
lot.
than the unlevered IRRs.
But like think about it like an APR on a credit card, right?
Yes.
Imagine I could go to a CFO and be like, hey, listen, I know you love paying your taxes to Uncle Sam in DC, but they have this program out there, and if you let me put something on your roof, I can bring down your tax liability significantly. Not only can I do that now, but I can also bring it back 1 year to your prior year's return.
Sick.
So to me, solar was a financial product masquerading as hardware.
Yep.
And
100%.
it was an incredible business. It was super interesting that I built this little bit of sidebar here, but like where the math is mathing, I built this data set from the North LA County line down to the Tijuana border with Tijuana. That is the largest industrial base in the United States.
Wow.
With Chicago being a far second.
I didn't know that.
And yeah, so like
Neither.
you look at that, I then determine, all right, all these warehouses that are here, which ones I think need to be re-roofed in the next 5 years. And I just went to these CFOs and I was like, hey, listen, you're gonna pay all this money for a re-roof.
Yep.
You're gonna depreciate over 30 years. If I just stick solar on top of it, the portion of the roof underneath the solar project all of a sudden qualifies for a tax credit and is depreciated on a 5-year MACRS basis. You just start printing money. So it was a super cool problem, and it was a weird mix of personnel. It was finance bros mixed with construction crews. And I don't think I'll be able to create that dynamic again.
Is that where you said you still have your potty mouth from?
Yeah, definitely.
The construction crews, not the finance bros.
Yeah. Well,
Probably
a
the
little bit of
finance
both.
bros, yeah.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
But it was also a super fun business because I got to rent heavy machinery that I had no business renting,
Like what?
like telescopic forklifts, massive cherry pickers. I even tried to figure out how I could get a mobile crane to one site.
Oh my gosh.
And my foreman was like, Nick, you're an idiot. Like, we absolutely do not need this here. I was like, I know we don't need it, but can we?
That's not what I asked.
Yeah, like,
I love it.
so yeah, that was pretty fun. And my Home Depot runs were absolutely epic.
I love it.
Like that was a lot of fun, that business.
How
So-
cool. What happened? What was that?
So I grew to about 9.5, 10 million in run rate, and then I sold it out to my partner because it was an interesting business, but that industry progressed so quickly
Yeah.
to the point where any person with another guy, a truck, and a ladder could source deals, finance them, and figure out how to install them in a weekend.
But did they have a crane?
No, they didn't.
See?
Yeah, there you go. But the joke I used to make was like, hey, you give me a team of monkeys, a weekend, and enough bananas, and I can teach that team how to install
Yeah, absolutely.
a solar project in a weekend.
It became a commodity.
Yeah,
of sorts,
yeah. So like I saw our project margins go from essentially software margins, 40%, 45% down to 15, 18. And I was like, you know what? We're one really big mistake away from a really
totally.
bad financial problem. And what drove me a little crazy with that business is it trades on EBITDA multiples. And that was like the major lesson from that business was if I'm going to go through all the stress and heartache and put my family through a whole lot of heartache, I'm going to build a business that trades on a revenue multiple.
That scales. That has the opportunities.
That's
yeah,
it.
totally.
So, which is kind of why I ended up switching to tech.
Wow,
It was
that's
just
fascinating.
the math just made more sense.
Yeah,
Does that
so-
kind of give you an idea on
Yeah,
that business?
100%. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, it's fascinating to to see that, I had solar installed from a very large publicly traded solar company which will remain nameless, and they totally botched it. Yeah, it was fascinating because it was financially beneficial, but it was also kind of a passion project, and it just turned me off.
Yeah, man, and it's I've got a neighbor who's I won't name names, but like you see folks, he's head of ops at I'd say a pretty good sized regional installer. And you see, and I was talking about, some things change at solar, some don't. I was talking about the way they were doing installs on top of roofs, and they're literally trying to save a few bucks per penetration in the roof versus doing something that absolutely ensures there's no possibility of leakage for the homeowner or the business. And I was thinking, I'm like, dude, like, you guys are literally going to get smoked in 5 years.
Yeah, risk reward sucks on that.
So
that's exactly what happened to me. Flooded my entire house. It was crazy. Yeah.
Dude, it's insane. And like, they're instead of spending $15, they spent $5, and you absolutely could have avoided that by just spending $10 more per penetration. Wow. And there's maybe 15 on your roof as a homeowner. Yeah. So,
unreal.
Anyways.
So then what? What happened after that?
Yeah,
fintech, right? So that was kind of the Peter Thiel kind of N to 1 or N+1 concept. What was the fintech a little bit 0 to N? Was it a little bit more unique?
I feel like you just wanted to make the N to the 1 to the 0.
No, I'm just like I think that's part of like if anybody can do a solar company that's just they think they can do a better job. It already exists.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still cool, but
totally.
What was the fintech?
It was an e-commerce enablement tool. And have you ever heard of the company Honey?
I haven't. No.
Is that the thing that plugs into
Chrome? It's like an automatic coupon. So we were the largest independent competitor globally. And so once they got acquired by PayPal, we were then the only independent player in the market operating across the US and Europe.
So it plugs in to help you find while you're shopping where you could find that other places less expensive or get coupon codes for it.
Exactly, and earn cash back. So we were not sending people to the moon. It was a very simple concept.
Yeah.
But I loved that business because when I would go to sleep, it would still make money for us.
That's the dream.
Still save money for our customers. And that was a super fun but extremely stressful ride. Again, so my solar company, I bet all my own money. That company was a mixture of my own, and we did a friends and family round. And, the big lesson learned there was choose the right capital partners because we ended up selling for an upper 8-figure number when realistically that was a $400 million business.
Wow.
And the reason I say that is, going to your point in the performance marketing we were talking about earlier, I don't know if I'm supposed to be referencing you over
That's
here.
Pepper Pat we're referencing.
So there we go.
It's Pepper Pat.
Man.
We brought our payback periods down to 6 weeks, but our retention was measured in years. So our cohort IRRs were somewhere between 900 to 1,200%.
Unreal.
So we were printing money. And that, I try to convince my partners and the rest of the cap table, hey, like we need to go raise 20, 30, $40 million in growth equity or we're going to get smoked. And sure enough, we couldn't convince them of that. Our largest competitor, Honey, found that funnel, copied it to the pixel. And we estimated they put $100 million in the acquisition funnel and they just exploded as a result, along with other things they were doing, obviously. But it was super frustrating for me. And that's sort of like the chip on my shoulder from that business was, if the first lesson from solar was build a business that trades on a revenue multiple, the second was choose the right capital partners that understand at least tech. And when they see the door, walk through it, go raise the growth equity so you can have that outsized outcome.
I feel like the other lesson would probably be don't sell your company during your wife's labor.
That is a very good point.
I don't know much about all this IRRs and such, but I do think that was a good lesson to take.
That was, I guess I should tell that story now.
Yeah, that's what I was teeing you up for.
Yeah. So that was super interesting. I absolutely should either be dead or divorced at the hands of my wife. But no, so the second kid was coming along. We were in diligence, and I think the kid was due March 14th. And so I was lining up all the sort of diligence and C-suite meetings between March 1 and March 7.
That was risky. That's a week. 2 weeks prior to.
I know, but our first kid was like not a month late, like 3 weeks late. So I was like, listen, I'm not saying I'm by no means am I a great human being, right? Or like a good husband in many ways. So
Doubt it.
You're definitely right. Like I miscalculated that one.
Well, Joe's with you and he's had 5, so I feel like
Are you serious?
Yeah, totally. But
Well,
you're right.
he hasn't had
You
5.
made a good, rational decision.
Yeah.
I
Well,
agree.
a good irrational decision.
Rational.
Irrational,
Starting
yes.
with an R.
IRR.
yeah.
No, I
there
mean,
you go.
like, hey,
There you go. So in any case, she has some like spotting in the morning. She's like, hey, I wonder is something like, this is okay. Like, I'm sure things will be found. I'm like, no, you should call the doctor. Like, she calls the doc. She's downplaying, and the doctor's like, no, you got to go to the hospital.
And what's
right
the
now.
date of this?
March 7th.
Okay, so when you're still having your meetings and such.
Yeah. So like, I'm literally finishing, like, trying to create a PowerPoint and finish it that I have to deliver to the C-suite at Klarna. And fast forward, the doctor's like, hey, you got to get in. So I start blowing. I think it was a weekend day, and I was blowing through red lights. Like, absolutely wanted that experience as a father, going to the hospital, get her into labor and delivery, and I'm like, hey, you have to keep this kid in for like a few hours here. So
Hold it.
Yeah, like
Needs to bake a little bit more.
I need to finish
Suck it
this
back in.
PowerPoint, and so I put on Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Obviously.
Yeah, because like
Right.
trashier the better. And I finish the PowerPoint, out comes the kid. I walk him up to the NICU. They stabilize him. Everything's good. And then I walk into some random hallway in Cedars-Sinai in Beverly Hills, deliver this PowerPoint over Zoom to the C-suite at Klarna, like make sure I blur out the background so that
Right.
no one knows what's going on. Finish it up, close the laptop, go down, and finally like start paying attention to my wife and my son again. Like it was just, I'm pretty sure if I didn't close that deal, she would have murdered me.
I love it.
So
Yeah, you blew right through the actual birth part. You were like, and then he came out and he's in the NICU, but I got the PowerPoint in.
yeah, there you go. So
That is iconic.
You made a really cool point in the notes you sent us, man, about choosing the right partner and how beneficial and vital it is for the sake of being an entrepreneur. Can you maybe talk more about that?
yeah, I mean like, I met my wife playing Spin the Bottle 20 years ago.
Wow,
Didn't we all?
Old school.
Exactly. So, I very much lucked in. Well, she had a lot of warning signs to like cut it off and move on and find someone better, but she, I guess, chose to ignore them, which very much worked in my favor.
Yeah.
But she's really been the foundation that allows me to go out and take the risk every day. And whenever we're in conversations around, what we built and sold, it's always like a collective thing. Even though she wasn't technically in the business, to me, it's like, listen, if you weren't there, like, frankly speaking, taking care of me outside of work, and take care of our family, I would have been smoked. So she's been absolutely critical. I think what's given us the edge is that her folks are also entrepreneurs as well. So I think she's lived through that kind of up and down cycle of what it means to win, what it means to lose, and have more trying times.
Wow.
But I mean, our personal finances were such a mess for such a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost a joke how bad it was. So yeah, I don't know. Does that kind of give you an idea?
Yeah, I mean, like she had to have the buy-in, the entrepreneurial spirit enough to be able to take that risk with you, and it's such a cool perspective that we do not hear often. Like, hey, this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for my rock star spouse.
100%. And she's also a mental health therapist, so that probably plays into it a little bit. Like
a lot.
And actually, no, she was a kindergarten teacher too. The bar was definitely set low for me. So like I didn't have to step too high to exceed expectations here.
Well, and coming from an entrepreneurial family, I feel like learning the entrepreneurial lifestyle and the ups and downs is something that's hard to learn if you don't have a lot of exposure to it.
Yep.
So getting, spin the bottled into a partner who understands and can ride the wave with you is huge. Because
100%.
trying to grab somebody to come along for the ride that doesn't get it is going to probably fall off at some point.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is definitely like, can you keep your lifestyle to the minimum necessary versus where you think it can go? So that, it's ups and downs, right? There are great years, but then there are some really lean ones. And how do you make sure that you survive long enough to take another swing at the plate?
Yeah.
And that's been that's been the thing I've personally learned is like, just don't get over your skis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, do you actually need some of these other sort of ancillary purchases as an example, or can you just kind of like?
Yeah. Do you need the crane or do you not need the crane?
I mean, I always need the mobile crane.
Always
Right.
need the damn crane.
So yeah, but yeah.
So tell us about Pulse.
Yeah, so Pulse essentially is, our reason for being is to help clinical groups recruit, retain, and improve the performance of their key personnel, their clinicians. And we want to do that by helping them understand the economic incentives that are already in front of them. So how do we take these, at times, complex concepts around real equity, synthetic equity, earnouts, yield, whatever it is, and turn it into a visually stunning, easy to digest format that they can understand? Is just one example which comes up consistently with some of our customers, with most of our customers, I should say, is, what does it mean to add an associate clinician to our practice? Not only, for me as an equity incentivized clinician, not only now from an income basis, but also in the future in a capital gains basis, 3, 4, 5 years down the line.
Right.
And that's essentially it. We're not sending people to the moon. It's just trying to take what's currently being done in Excel, sometimes PowerPoints, and making it a little bit more real. So folks stop what I call sub-optimizing locally on the income basis and optimize globally on the capital gains basis. Because that's really what moves the needle for, in the case of PE-backed groups, the sponsor, the operating company, the unit holders, and ultimately their families. Because the tax basis is very different, and that's a reality. So how do you get folks to maximize on that sort of intergenerational opportunity in terms of wealth creation?
Wow.
That's it.
Dope.
Where did the idea come from?
Interesting origin story. So one of our co-founders, Michael Stenslick, was a co-founder of a DSO called Tend. And
T-E-N-T, Tend?
T-E-N-D.
Tend, okay.
I think they're mostly Northeast based. I think they have some Mid-Atlantic locations.
Okay.
And they had an issue. What he experienced there was they had an issue aligning clinicians' incentives with Topco, what was going on at the organizational level to sort of move the needle forward. And when he had exited that business, and when I had interacted with him, met him, we were trying to figure out, was this a problem at Tend, in human dentistry in general, or human medicine in general? And it turns out it's the latter. And it's a massive market opportunity. And the current baseline is a bunch of lawyers and accountants and ops folks working in Excel files. And, my first business was betting against these types of folks working in Excel files. And I think this business is the same. And what's nice about it is no one wants to be doing it anyways. And it's, in a lot of cases I've seen, it's often riddled with errors. So there's I'm not selling this as a compliance tool, but hey, if we can make it better, faster, cheaper for you, and also make sure everything is matching your operating agreements, cool, let's go do this. So,
and the knowledge is vital, absolutely vital for these clinicians to, and entrepreneurs to understand.
100%. I
And
forget.
it's hard to quantify too. It can be for somebody who didn't go to business school or isn't used to being in Excel all day.
100%. And I think it was Justin Carroll that was on your program talking about, it's not, I think he said, clinicians get a bad rap for not understanding the business side, but he thinks it's actually more that they don't have the full amount of information, the necessary information to be able to make the right decisions for themselves and the company. And that's all this is trying to do. It's all right, if you do X, this is what it means for you, Y, and Z. So cause and effect.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
I just love that you listened to episodes before you came.
Hey, I wanted to make sure
That guy does his research.
like I said,
Our number one fan.
the thing we were joking about is I do not know Justin Puckett, although I will meet him later on.
Can that be the title of this episode?
The only-
I
the
do
only
not
guest.
know Justin Puckett.
Yeah. So
More special because of that. Thank you.
yeah, there you go. Of course, you got your soundbite, right?
But that information is not only is it so vital, but it's currently dispersed from multiple sources, and it's kind of guarded, right? It's whoever it is, the brokers, the CPAs, the lawyers are they have a fee for providing this information, and they don't have full information.
What's wild about it though is when we were speaking a lot of legal teams around this, is that it might take one of their associates, I'm making an example here, 20, 25 hours to figure out what is actually the correct version of the cap table. But no client is ever going to allow that vendor to charge them those full 20 hours. They're at most able to charge 5 to 6. So they don't even want to be doing this because it's a loss leader in some instances. So it's really interesting where everyone is coming away smiling. The centers of influence, the CPAs, the lawyers, the ops folks are smiling about the outcome. The clinicians are smiling about the outcome. And what's been really motivating about it is, I'll give you an example. We have a CEO of a surgery practice based Mid-Atlantic, multiple locations, multiple surgeons, very high run rate per surgeon. We signed him in early October, and we've already achieved time to value about six weeks later. He's
Wow.
had a 3x increase in M&A targets and a 50% increase in associated clinician referrals.
Huge.
And that's all just based on, these are really smart people and high performers. They likely have in their sphere of influence other high performers that are looking for interesting opportunities.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you show someone, hey, why did you come to this platform? Why should you stay? And what do I need to do to outperform and do better for myself and my family? They talk.
Yeah.
And they'll talk to other people about it. So it's been an awesome business. I love it. We're very early stages. We literally just started collecting checks in July, and we've already signed a few PE funds, some pretty large enterprise deals, also, as well as, which is actually more exciting for me, we've signed clinical groups only doing a few million a year in revenue, but they're growing. And that end of the market is just, there's a lot of consolidation left.
Yeah.
There's a lot of potential customers in that market. So I think this business has a lot of opportunity here. So
That's
super
amazing.
cool.
Congratulations.
yeah, it's early days, but
Yeah.
it's fun.
Whole lot of white space.
Yeah.
I think in dentistry, the stat that we throw around all the time is only 30% of dentistry is affiliated with a group right now. So, yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah,
Is there anything that we didn't get to that you wanted to touch on?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty good. It gives me some sound bites if that's what you're asking.
That's why we actually invited you here. We do appreciate it though.
No, of course.
Well, most importantly, kudos to the incredible spouse that
100%.
taking care of those beautiful boys.
Yeah, dude. They're absolute monsters, but I love them to death.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Joe gets it.
Thanks for popping in. Listeners, thank you for joining us for another very fun, cool, insightful episode of the MB2 Ungrown podcast. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
To the moon.